It is just a huge honor for me to be podcast interviewing my mentor and my idol for gosh darn since for at least 20 years. Dr. Dawn Kulongowski. I only knew her as Dr. Daisy for the first decade, but I guess now she has a name and all. My gosh. But anyway, she is the owner and sole practitioner of a dental practice in Michigan where she lives with her husband, daughter, and 2 dogs. By the way, who caused you more trouble, the husband and daughter or the 2 dogs?
The dogs are the best part of life.
I got 4 dogs, but I still like my 3 cats better. After hitting a wall of personal and professional burnout, she met her teacher, davidji. Davidji, I see that, and started a regular meditation practice. She was amazed at the level of personal changes that came from meditating and employing simple mindfulness techniques throughout the day. Since then, Dawn has immersed herself in the study of meditation, mindfulness, and communication skills. She has completed a 500-hour accredited meditation teacher certification program and continues to study the subject matter in depth with enthusiasm. Studying this wisdom and a daily meditation practice have improved her professional practice as well as other aspects of her daily life. She enjoys teaching stress management skills and meditation practice to fellow professionals through her teaching business, The Peaceful Practice. Dr. Dawn was born and raised in Ortonville, Michigan. She knew at a pretty young age she wanted to be a dentist, and after graduating from high school, received a Bachelor of Science in Biology and Philosophy from the University of Detroit, Michigan. She continued at that school and received her doctor of dental surgery in 2002. That's when I met her on Dental Town. There are so many fascinating things going on in dentistry. You're just in. I could read your bio for 40 days and 40 nights.
Please don't.
Well, you're a big reader, and all leaders are readers, and all extroverts are so busy telling you everything. How little they know, they never have time to read, and it's always the introvert reader that just keeps accumulating. It's kind of like you say, well, how did Warren Buffett end up with $80 billion? Same thing you say, how did Dawn get so smart so fast? There's so many things I want to start with, but I want to start with the major one, and that is on Dental Town. Since we started that thing, there's always been a thread going on about burnout. And there's one that's been going on forever. I'm trying to find it real quick, but it's always the same thing. They say, I get on Dental Town, and I know there's people that love dentistry and all this stuff like that, but I only do it for the job. I hate it. Why? Well, first of all, do you think, I've heard so many patients when you say, like, I'm a policeman, they'll say, well, we have the highest suicide rate. And then a fireman will come in. Oh, well, we have the highest suicide rate. So it sounds like every profession thinks they have the highest suicide rate. But
Lawyers
I'm pretty damn sure it's the people who served in war and not dentists and firemen.
Yes. You're so right about
But do you think dentistry has more burnout, disease, and depression and addiction and all that, or do you think we're just the
I think
average?
if you look at the statistics, that absolutely the professions, meaning all of healthcare and the legal profession, we do have at least, and again it ranks from bottom to top, but we do have at least twice the addiction rate of the general population. That's facts on paper. So there's something going on there where we maybe don't have.
You got a source on that?
I can email you one later because I have tons of that.
Howard at dentaltown.com. That dentistry has twice of all
Correct.
the other professionals?
No. What I'm saying is all professionals. So lawyers, doctors, and dentists. We have twice that of the general population. So when you take all of the suicide rate of the general population, or I'm sorry, the addiction rate of the general population is somewhere around 10%, correct? In dentistry, it's about double that. And that's true in law and also in healthcare. Highest rate of addiction is anesthesiologists. But they have better access maybe. But I think we all have the same crappy coping skills. We were taught to be dentists or doctors or attorneys. We were not taught how to be human beings. And we've just kind of been fighting it out in the trenches and not necessarily getting the right skills.
Did you just call some of my friends a human?
We don't all act like it all of the time, but we are all human.
Okay. So, and then the other thing, it's kind of funny because when you and I hope your peaceful practice, I mean, you should be the biggest name in the lecture circuit. And in fact, I was talking to Ultradent today, and they said who was that? Somebody. It was Melanie Jones from Ultradent. She goes, "I need the best woman keynote speaker. Who is it?" And I said, "Duh," because it really is. It really is the issue. I think dentists are crushing it. Hell, they make $180,000 a year when the average household is 50. So they make more than the 3.5 houses down the street.
But does that make them happy and fulfilled?
But they have 3-day weekends.
Okay.
And every time they don't work evenings. And every time I've polled them since 1994, I said, "What stresses you out the most?" And it's always people. It's like the patients, the staff,
well,
the
so
patients.
that's where the coping skills come in. I mean, that's where the coping skills. We have to find a way, whatever the thing is that bothers you, because some people are better with the people than they are at the dentistry. Some people are better at the dentistry than they are with the people. Some people are not good at the business aspect at all. Whatever your kink is, like we all have something where we're stuck, the snag in our fabric. Whatever that is, you need to spend time on it. And for a lot of us, it's dealing with the patients or dealing with the staff. I know so many dentists want nothing to do with dealing with their staff. I mean, that's a huge hole, I think, for a lot of practices. So they hire someone to do it for them. I call it the office wife. And sometimes it is their wife. So they put the wife in the office and they make her do all of the communicating with the staff, all of the difficult conversations, all of the things that are hard for the practitioner, because we were really, again, only taught to work in that little 2-millimeter box inside the tooth. And so everything else, we've been just kind of winging it. One of my favorite teachers, his name is Ram Dass. He passed away in December, but he says, "The best thing I can do for you is work on myself. And the best thing that you can do for me is work on yourself." So if we undertake a little bit of self-care and self-work, we become better managers. We become better at dealing with staff. We deal with them better as human beings. They deal better with us if we put them on the same page of doing that same kind of self-work, where we learn communication skills. When your assistant hands you the wrong instrument, what do you do?
I hit her.
There you go. I pretend to use it for a second, and then I smile sheepishly and give it back to her.
What do you tell your office manager with 2 black eyes?
I have no idea.
Nothing. You've told her twice.
Sadly, I've met a lot of assistants who've had instruments thrown at them.
Oh, I had one. It was stuck in her leg.
You're kidding me.
But I've never met any dental assistant or staff member that ever saw a dentist who put his knee in the patient's chest on extracting the tooth.
Yes.
That one's just straight out lie.
That's an absolute lie. And I have seen some of our colleagues try to recreate that in videos, and they're very funny because you can't get anywhere near the tooth in that position. It's ridiculous.
So how does for me, it's very challenging when you have someone who borrowed $400,000 of other people's money to be a dentist and then borrowed $750,000 of other people's money to get a dental office. So now they're $1.1 million in debt and don't want to go to work. And what they don't understand is that, dude, when you put down your dental drill, you might only be worth $15 an hour at Home Depot.
Yes, you're not qualified for much else.
Yeah. So, what do you do with that person?
Well, I think I was that person, and my debt was actually quite a bit higher. Maybe not for school, but for my practice. So, if you would like the numbers, I graduated from dental school with $204,000 of academic debt, and then I borrowed $1.8 million to buy my practice. So, I started my career very much in debt. But I think it goes further back than that. I think that the source of the unhappiness is not the career. And I think that that's where people get messed up.
How much did you pay for your practice?
$1.8 million.
Holy gosh. You could have almost got divorced for that. Was it a lot of land and building?
No, it was just a large practice.
Okay.
So,
do you still have that practice today?
I do. I'm sitting right in it. You're sitting in it with me.
Okay, good.
Okay. This is my private office behind me. So my practice has gone through a lot of changes, but I think that that the expectations are wrong. I don't think it's the career. I think it's our mental expectations of the career. So I was a person who had a list. I thought that when I graduated from high school, I had this checklist, and I was going to get a degree, and I was going to go to dental school, and I was going to get married and have a kid and buy a practice. And then that was kind of where my list ended. So I did all of those things, and I got to the bottom of the list, and I was like, not only am I not happy, but I'm really overwhelmed, and I'm sinking in debt, and the patients don't really like me. You know, I mean, you see people all day long who the first thing they say to you is, I hate the dentist. And that it was traumatic for me. And I did spend probably the first 3 years of my career thinking I had made a huge mistake. I did. But I think where we go wrong is that we're so focused when we're growing up on establishing ourselves in a career. So people like us that are bookworms or that are driven and career oriented, we think that's where it's at. And we kind of forget or neglect the other aspects of our being. So for me, I suffered with burnout for years, and it wasn't a thing that was constant. It would come and go. You know, I would have good weeks and I would have bad weeks, and I would have good years or bad years. And I think, you know, whether you remember or not, I had a lot of struggles in my practice too. I had 2 legal issues in my practice, one with the former owner and then one with my former partner. And since being a solo practitioner, I figured out that I couldn't walk through my practice just stubbing my toe on everything all the time, because that's really what it felt like. It was like, okay, I'd get a little bit ahead and then I'd fall 3 steps behind. So when I started my meditation practice, what I realized is that it was probably not realistic to look for complete personal fulfillment in my career. And once I kind of let go of that expectation and started interacting with the patients more and trying to have quality interactions with the patients and quality interactions with my staff and build my office to be a place where I liked to go every day, it became a totally different game. It became a totally different game. I actually do enjoy the dentistry now, but I don't have the expectation of that. When I let go of the expectation, it took the pressure off. But that took time. It took time. I had to kind of rearrange my life and realize that that was maybe something that wasn't true that I'd been sold since I was 12.
And how long did that journey take before you were self-awareness? You realized, okay, this is an issue that I'm going to attack, like I did undergrad to get into dental school to get a practice. How long did that journey take?
Well, I met my teacher, davidji, in 2014. But I have been a dentist since 2002. And by 2014, I had the legal suit over my practice. I had broken up with my partner. And I was I had hit rock bottom in some manner. And I went to a retreat that he was giving. It was the release event for his book, which is called De-Stressifying. And which was it was a perfect book for me to read. But the book didn't come out until we were there. So I got the book when we were there, but he spent the weekend going through a lot of these strategies. And during that process, I kind of had a little bit of an emotional meltdown in the classroom the one day. And it had to do with me having the realization that I had been unhappy for a long time, and that I had been carrying that with me for a long time, and that I really did need to address it. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't bury myself in bad habits. Shopping wasn't doing it, or traveling. A lot of people think vacation is where it's at. Vacation was great, but then I would come back to the same set of problems. Some staff issue, some patients not happy, some nonsense, going on at work. And I was taking all those things very, very seriously. So they were very heavy. They were very heavyweight. So I had that realization in a conversation with davidji while at that retreat. And then after I committed to these different practices and looking at my day in a different way, those things, they kind of all just sorted themselves out. It wasn't like this active effort. My active effort was in my meditation practice. And then that piece that was created where I approached the day differently. So I meditate every morning for a half an hour. And it kind of creates this ring around you. It's like a buffer. So I'm not as agitated when I get here, if that makes sense. You're not starting your day on 10. You're starting your day, maybe the first day you start on 9. And then after a month, you're at 8. And after, 6 months, you're at 5. So you work your way down. And when you're not agitated the second you get in the office, you can deal with things a lot more effectively. And then at some point, you can actually maybe start to enjoy them. But it does take a commitment. But the commitment truly was for me to the meditation practice. That was truly where it was at. It wasn't really It wasn't really a commitment to anything else. It was a commitment to starting my day in a different manner and training my brain to exist differently. A lot of us are overthinkers. Are you an overthinker, Howard? You strike me as you might be.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I've always, and it took, I feel like I'm from a different planet because I just sometimes you'll be talking to someone and you're just thinking, how did you make it this? Like you'll say, well, what do you think about that? And they'll say, I've never really thought of that. And you're just like,
it's like, how have you not thought of that? It's all I've thought about I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's how my brain
it's a family thing. Like my oldest sister couldn't just be Catholic. She couldn't just be a nun. She had to be a cloistered Carmelite monk. The other one, it's like, I just want one of my 5 sisters to be average in something. They're all, so so do you think there's a genetic component to, or is it genetic or learned at home? Did your mom teach you to overthink, or did she give you the genes to do that?
I do think it's genetic. I think that my family is, and my parents are going to hate me for saying this, but there is a little bit of anxiety in my family. My dad is antsy, can't sit still. Cannot sit still. He's retired, I think, 10 years now, and he still can't sit still. They don't know how to relax. So yes, I do think that was part of it, but I also think that I came from a culture of hard work. My dad worked very hard. He started working on a machine line in a factory, and then he ended up managing that entire company by the time I was older. And so it was this hard work situation. It was, you get up first, you get to the office first, you're the last one home. My dad, he took a nap every day because probably he was just worn out, So I do think that drive, that thinking that it's at the end of the day of hard work. And by it, I mean happiness, fulfillment, peace, all of that. You're like, at the end of the day of hard work, that's where it's at. And it turns out it's not there. And all of us should know that. All of us should know that because we've all spent many hard days, many hard work days. And at the end of the day, how often are you feeling peaceful and content? Most of the time, I was pretty wound up. I would have trouble sleeping because I'd be so wound up from the day of, doing.
But the silver lining to all this is, you had this, you had a legal issue with the guy. It sounds like you bought the practice from, and then your partner.
Later, yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't cost you a divorce.
No, I'm still married. I've been married for 18 years.
Yeah, I'd rather lose my business partner than
oh God, yes.
than that. So kudos on that.
Yes. There was a lot of stability that I was in need of that was provided there for sure. My poor husband.
And how old's your daughter now?
My daughter is 12.
Oh my God.
I know that happened all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, that's just amazing. So I want to stay back on the book though. Because would you say that De-Stressifying by Davidji was the launch into your new life?
Oh my God. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Then go through that book. What is?
Well, I have about 40 copies of it in my cupboard because I give it to people all the time. I'll have to send you one when we're done with it.
And he's got 139 5-star ratings on Amazon.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah. So the book De-Stressifying really talks about kind of becoming the master of your life. So it's a great book for control freaks like us. And again, I see a lot of common characteristics, like you said, anxiety, overthinking, control freak type tendencies in professional people. That's how we got here. You kind of have to be all of those things to do what we do. So De-Stressifying, he talks about breaking down your life into different areas and then concentrating on those areas as separate things. So we tend to think of life as work and home, but what he's saying is that, we have a physical life, we have an emotional life, we have a mental life, we have relationships with other people, and we have a spiritual life. And we work through all of those things separately. So really the key of that book, though, and the key of what got me looking at life differently was he talks about the first thing you have to master is mastering your awareness. So a lot of people don't know what awareness is. Awareness is kind of the integrator of all of your senses. And I'm going to throw thinking into a sense category. It's not a sense in a traditional way, but the awareness is the integrator of all of the activity that's going on in our body and in our brain. Okay, so it's taking in the things that are coming up from the outside through our 5 senses that we're aware of, but it's also integrating the information that we get from the senses that we have that are internal. Like if I asked you how you're feeling today, you would have some answer for that, right? Or if I asked you where your right arm is, we all have proprioception. We know where our parts are. Your awareness is the integrator of all of that information, including your thoughts. So the problem for most of us is that we're so controlled by our thinking brain. We can't turn it off at night. We're up all night thinking that, or we're so exhausted we fall asleep, and then we wake up at 2 a.m. and we can't get back to sleep because as soon as we woke up, that thinking brain came on and it took over, right? So when we master our awareness, we come at our life from a different direction. So instead of just being a thinking brain and reacting to everything that's coming at us through those 5 senses, and like I said, the ones inside too, we take a higher seat. We take a higher seat. We take a little distance from those things, and we look at life completely differently from up there. You start to realize that not everything needs your attention. You don't need to react to everything that comes in, including every thought you ever have. A lot of problem with anxiety is the thinking. And I don't know if have you ever suffered from anxiety, Howard? You don't have to say if you don't want to, but
no, I suffer from male pattern baldness, and I don't think I've had anxiety. Yeah, okay. I don't think I've had that.
So I had anxiety for a lot of years, and one of the key issues.
First of all, explain what it means to have anxiety.
Well, there's a lot of anxiety as a chemical issue, right? But for me, the experience of anxiety was that I would have a thought about something, and then I would grab onto the drama of that thought and ride it till it's dead. So something simple like the handle of the bathroom door. So some little obstacle, right? You look at the bathroom door and you go, oh God, no one washes their hands. I don't want to touch that door, but I have to touch the door because I got to get out of the bathroom, and it becomes this endless tornado of all these bad things that are going to happen to me if I touch that door. And then God forbid, once you touch the door, then the thoughts, they go further down from there. But a lot of anxiety is you kind of have a negative thought or a scary thought and you grab onto it and ride it. And, until you can't stand it anymore, until you've worked yourself into such a tither. I used to have a lot of anxiety about flying, which is crazy. I fly so much now, I never think anything of it. I go, yay, I can have a nap. But but there was a time when getting on an airplane, all I could think about was that 30,000 feet between me and the ground. But it's the same kind of thing. You have the thoughts. You go, oh, there's one layer of aluminum separating me from the ground 30,000 feet below. And then you start really feeding on that. And it starts a stress reaction in your body that becomes just completely out of control. And that's another thing, meditation is scientifically proven to reduce your stress level, reduces that output of cortisol. And when you're not reacting to all that stuff, your cortisol levels go down and you're not experiencing stress at such a dramatic rate. So for someone like me that was suffering from a lot of anxiety and overthinking, I was starting on 10. I was already overloaded with stress hormones, and then you'd add something else and it would be, the whole world explodes in front of you, and you don't have a lot of control of what's going on inside of yourself. My meditation practice, again, I don't live in that thinking brain as often anymore. It doesn't mean that I'm not human anymore and that I don't still have the occasional thought. The thoughts are still there, but the physical reaction is gone. So I'm not having this kind of terrible feeling, like that feeling you get in your gut when something happens that you don't like, or something that happens that you're maybe afraid of. I don't really have that physical feeling so much on a daily basis, because I think I walked around with that feeling in my gut for years. Like I didn't even know that people didn't have that. Like it was my only gauge of experience was having this kind of icky dread in my stomach all the time. And I don't have that anymore. I have it on occasion. Like I said, I'm not immune to stress or human emotion, but I process it much better. And I can hit things away that I don't need to deal with, because a lot of people were reacting to everything that comes into our awareness. And 90% of that crap is not worth our time.
So do you think that's a leading cause of the burnout, disease, depression, anything dysfunctional in dentistry, that we enter, that it attracts people like I'll take bipolar. I think that's the most classic example. America, Canada was 4% bipolar. Europe was 0.5%. So all through the 50s and the 60s, they just thought, okay, well, we're measuring it differently. And finally, the dean of Don Hopkins psychiatric part said, no, we're gonna fix this. Let's send grad students. Let's get this all worked out. And indeed, he realized, oh my God, we are 4% and they're 0.5%. And it was an evolutionary biologist that said, well, for 500 years, who would be the most likely person in Europe to say, screw this country, you take this job and shove it, get in the boat with the shirt on your back and come to America.
Yeah, no,
So
totally.
we were
Yeah.
a drain for that. And and these people today would say things like, well, in high school, normal people say, well, when I grow up, I'm going to be a hygienist or a nurse or a dentist or a doctor. Who's the one who says, I'm going to join the Marines and kill people? So they got a bunch of natural selection. That's why they have 26 suicides a day. So what kind of person, what kind of bird do you think dentistry attracts, and what type of baggage do you think they're bringing to the table?
I do think it attracts people who are, again, controlling and detail oriented. And that can be a hard thing when you start to digest the fact that we really don't control very much that goes on in the world, and we don't control very much of what goes on in the body. So I think a lot of dentists have trouble with negative outcomes. Do you think that's fair? So you spent an hour in that 2 millimeter box, and then something happened and it didn't come out the way you wanted it to. And that kind of stress adds up. I also think that a lot of dentists aren't great at the people part. And that can be really stressful because the only thing you're going to do all day as a dentist is deal with people.
Yeah, and it's not. I think dentists are just like programmers, accountants, engineers, scientists. Same thing. Like when you go to ASU, they'll say, well, everybody in the social studies department's normal. Everybody in the English department's normal.
Normal.
But the engineers and the programmers, the math people, they're a little socially awkward. But
Right, and they're heady. There's a lot going on here.
But what's the definition of controlling? I mean, I think of controlling as I'm trying to control you. I'm going to put you in a cage. And what is controlling behavior?
We want to make all the decisions, and we want everything to come out the way we want it to.
Oh, well, that's every dentist.
That's what I'm saying.
Say something unique, Dawn. I mean, everybody knows every dentist is that.
But you asked me. You said what kind of person, and that's the kind of person.
Well, what I think is because I love group practice because self-awareness helps. The assistant's not going to stand up to you. No one's really going to stand up to you, but that's why you need to be around people that will stand up to you. You know what I mean? That's why what dads, brothers, kids. If you're surrounded by 5 people just saying yes, Dawn, you're absolutely correct. Well, that's going to ruin everybody. So you want to be around people that call your shit. What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, I work alone as far as doctors go, and I have for years now. And I would say that my staff will call me on my shit because I've given them permission to, and I don't react negatively. So there's something I teach, and it's too long to go into here, but it's the idea of the artful critique, how to critique people and how to receive criticism. And I'll boil it down. I'll boil it down to one sentence. It's not personal. You can't make it personal. So if you give people the freedom to talk to you like you're just a person like them, granted, I realize there will always be a different relationship there because of, just because of the power hierarchy in the office. But I don't think that, gosh, my one staff person, I had some brochures printed up, and I had asked the staff to look at it, for typos, because you know what you wanted it to say, but your brain won't process those little things once you've been poisoned by your idea. So I gave it to my staff person, and my lead assistant came to me, and she very carefully said, and I love her for this, it's very funny. She goes, "I feel like this picture makes you look large, and you're not." And I know you don't want to look like that. So she basically told me the picture was making me look fat and I should rethink it. But no one was offended. We had a good laugh about it, and I'm grateful for the feedback. But it has to do with training people of how to say things in a way that is not offensive. And again, it comes down to not making it personal. Instead of saying, a lot of people, when something goes wrong, they make it a statement about the person's moral character. You screwed up. You're an idiot. You always mess that up. That's probably the most common form of criticism that's doled out. What do you do with that? Someone says that to you. What do you do with that?
But what part of that was religion?
Well, there's probably a lot of that. As I'm a recovering Catholic, Howard, so I could I could talk to you about that crap all day.
Oh my God, my oldest sister. But it's great because now she's 60. When we were 20, we just had to argue till 3 a.m. on every issue. Now it's 60. It's like okay, I'll let her talk for 1 hour and then I got to go.
And then I got to go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, religion definitely plays a part. I mean, there's so many things that play a part in who we are as people. So many things, and the ideas we have. I mean, religion, at least, in my experience, I was not raised in a religious family. This is something people sometimes find interesting. I was not raised in a religious family. My mom was mad at the church because they would not marry her and my father, because my father was not whatever religion she was. So they would not marry her in the church that she had gone to, at which point she said, screw you, I'm done with this stuff. So when I started asking questions as a kid about religious matters, my parents sent me to church with the neighbors who were Catholic. So I grew up going to catechism and going to mass on Sunday in a house that was not Catholic. And then later I went to a Catholic university. And I befriended a priest who then put me through confirmation. So I was confirmed and baptized at the age of 22 by choice. I mean, I even made an adult choice there. But those things definitely, because a lot of those religions, and I think especially for women, teach you that you are unworthy from birth. And I think that's how a lot of them are based. I mean, that's kind of the base teaching. That's why we have to be baptized, right? Is because something is wrong with us. And we have to be washed of it. So I do think a lot of us come from, strict religious backgrounds where that does taint our opinion. And I do see that in a lot of my colleagues, where we feel like we can do such great things in that 2 millimeter box, but then we don't feel good about ourselves as people. I see a lot of that. I see a lot of low self-esteem. Social awkwardness, I think, sometimes is a reflection of a person's self-esteem. And I see so much of that. And it is a tragic, but honestly, religious trauma, that's a huge subject. It takes a lot of time for people to unwind that.
Yeah, and that box thing, it's because the culture of dentistry. Like if you go to a study club, the way they always line up, whether it's going to be the Catholic Church with altar boys, priests, and cardinals to popes, or the military to the infantry, the generals, they always line up in the same way. And you can see how it lines up because you go to a study club and the first dentist will say, well, I'm the best dentist there is because I trim all my own dies. And Don says, damn it, I'm the best dentist because I quarry my own stone, pour up my own dyes, and then I trim them. And then the third one's like, well, I got a beehive. I grow my own bees. I make my own wax. I quarry my own stone. And if you're just can create the longest distance between 2 points, then you're the best dentist. And it's just a joke. And about that box, I've had this argument with so many dentists, like never stress yourself out to take better care of a tooth than the patient. So here's a patient who's never brushed his teeth. You're running 20 minutes behind. The contact's not snappy. So dumbass decides to redo the whole damn composite.
That patient's never put floss between those two teeth.
And what you should have done in Phoenix, just sit down and had a nice conversation that you just don't want him to drink Mountain Dew after meth. If you could just
eliminate one of the two.
Yeah, so this person doesn't give a shit, but you're running the whole office late on this quality, and
I tell patients all the time, I cannot undo in one day what you do the other 364. Can't do it. I can't do it.
Can you also say, and I can't care more about you than you care about yourself? Like, because you open up says the best thing you can do for other people is to work on yourself.
Correct. And I definitely take that approach with my patients. Absolutely. I also teach them how to breathe in the chair through their anxiety, So that teaching definitely gave me many gifts. And one of them is the ability to talk to people without being insulting, because that's the key, right? You don't want to insult a person, but you want to make it clear, look, I know these are the shortcomings that you're having, and they're not going to help you. I can do the best dentistry in the world on you, but then when you go home and you're still having 8 Red Bulls a day and you don't know how to use floss, not because we haven't showed you 8 times, but because you've never practiced on your own, I can't do any better for you. You're going to lose these teeth. I've actually encouraged patients to not follow through with treatment if they're not going to change their habits. Better just shuck them.
So you started this whole conversation with patients to come in, and what did you say? They say that patients say, "I hate."
They hate the dentist.
But what do they actually say? I mean, do they look you in the eye and say, "I hate you," or "I hate"?
No, they don't hate you, and that's something that took me a long time to separate.
What do you think they're saying? Actually, say, "I hate going to the dentist" while they're looking at you.
I think they're saying they're afraid.
Right. But what are the words that come out of their mouth?
They say, "I hate the dentist."
I hate the dentist.
Offense. You've never had anyone say that to you, Howard?
No, I'm just wondering. I'm just taking notes. So I'm just wondering. I looked at it and I just thought it looked funny.
When I was a young dentist, I think
you're
that
still a young dentist. You look like you're 12.
I'm 44.
Yeah, but when you're a picture with your daughter, you look like sisters. I mean, you have to admit you have the most baby face I've ever seen.
Well, my face is I have terrible reactions in the sun. So this is 44 years of no sun exposure. That might be helping some. When I was a younger dentist, fresh out of dental school, like I said, I checked all those boxes. I did all the things I was supposed to do. And I really thought that the world would be my oyster. I didn't factor into that people don't like going to the dentist. I don't know why it never occurred to me, but it didn't. So when I was a young dentist, and my identity, because that was the thing, that was the key there too, is that for years, my goal in life was to become a dentist. And then I became one. And so now I'm the dentist. And so when people would say, they would come in the room, I mean, and I have a hard time believing that every dentist doesn't have the same experience. It's the new patient, or sometimes it's not even a new patient. It's one you've been seeing for 20 years and they still say that crap to you. But you come in the room and you go, oh, hi, I usually say I'm Dawn, but when I was younger, I probably said doctor just so that there was no confusion. But so I say, I'm Dr. Kulongowski. It's nice to meet you. And they go, no offense, doc, but I hate the dentist. Well, I just spent, 26 years of my life with the sole purpose of becoming a dentist. And now people are saying, I hate the dentist. Well, it made me feel like they were saying, I hate you. I know now that's not what they mean. I do know that now. And it doesn't bother me like it used to. But there were days where that was a very heavy hit. I think I'm helping people. That was the other thing is, my heart is good. Deep down under all the nonsense, my heart is good. And part of the reason I wanted to become a dentist is because I wanted to help people. And I go in a room with an intention of helping someone and they go, I hate you. And they don't say I hate you, like I said, but when your identity is the dentist, it's very easy to take that personally. As an older practitioner now, I know that it is not personal. A lot of those people have a story that would make me hate the dentist too. And it's important to kind of have that compassion for the person rather than be so ready to take it personally. It comes from that, again, I'm working for my awareness now, and I'm spending time on things that need my attention, and I'm batting away the other things. And that I hate the dentist, I'm going to bat that away because it's not about me. It's not personal. Maybe I have an opportunity here to give a person a better experience. But I had to get past that feeling like everyone hated me for about a decade.
Well, if they say to me, no offense, doc, but I hate going to the dentist, I always say, well, then you can't join my fan club, bitch. I thought, isn't that what you're supposed to say?
I might try that one. I like that. I might try it. It's not a bad line.
So seriously, I told Alterdent, they said they wanted a strong woman keynote for a deal. And I said, well, you're the strongest woman dentist I know.
I love Alterdent.
Do you?
I think Dan Fisher is about the most amazing human being on the planet.
Yeah. And he's, when they came out with tooth whitening and everyone knew the research that the light and the laser did nothing. Yes. There's only two people in dentistry that didn't have that, Dan Fisher and Rod Kurthy. Everyone else said, but the patients are asking for it. And I'm like, well, they're asking for meth.
Yeah, give it to them.
If they're suicidal, do you hand them a 9mm? I had a patient laugh so hard the other day. He said, he was all mad because they were given at his new job, they're given everything in meters. And, and I said, well, what did you want it in? He goes, yards. He goes, I'm an American. And I said, well, you already buy all your drugs in grams, and you always have a 9mm. So your metric with your 9mm buying a gram of cocaine, why the hell is gasoline going to be any different? But I want to ask you a couple other things that are more important. There is a lot of talk about how dentistry's changed because there's more girls. It used to be mostly male. Now it's mostly girls. Do you think
it's not mostly girls? One, we're women, and two, it's not mostly women.
It's half and half.
Graduating classes,
or half and half.
But not the profession as a whole.
Right. So
I think that's an important distinction.
Okay. But my question
There's
is,
a lot of 26-year-olds, but in my age range, it's probably more like 20%, 25%.
so
And in my friend Connie, who's like 60, she was one of three.
yeah.
So, so until all those 60-year-olds are gone, and the 26-year-olds are 60, we're not going to have 50-50. So it's not 50-50 yet. It's still very largely men. There are still many meetings I go to, many classes I go to where I am the only woman in the room. That absolutely happens on the regular. So it's not 50-50, but go ahead with your question. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a pain in the ass.
Does that ramp up? Do you think, how is that ramp up of that variable from your friend who was 1 to you 20 to now 50? Because they're blaming that on so many different things, just like the millennial thing. Do you think it'll have any big change on profession?
I hope so. I mean, nobody likes the boys club. Nobody likes the boys club. And let's think about it. Like, so I was asked to speak for a company, same kind of thing. You're talking about Ultradent. It was a different company. And the reason they wanted me is because I'm a woman. I would like them to want me because I have really awesome things to say. Because my brain, it contains a lot of knowledge that is beneficial to the people in the room. You know what I mean? So as a woman, those are the things you go, God, it's so great that they asked me, but shit, did they have to say it was because they wanted a woman? I mean, now it's better than it used to be, because like you're saying, they didn't even want women. When my friend who's 62 now, they let you in the room, but begrudgingly, right?
Is she a dentist in your town?
She's a dentist about an hour from me.
So I wonder, I bet the first girls, they're pretty different than the when it's 50-50. For instance, when I was a freshman, that one girl in the senior class, her nickname was Man Woman.
Oh, no.
And, well, it was true. I mean, it was actually.
She was very masculine.
Oh, my God. She could have kicked my ass. I mean, and
she probably had to be. That's how she got there.
Yeah. I remember asking. I remember asking my. So I had 3 African American teachers, and they happened to be like the 3 smartest teachers in there. There's Brett Ferguson and Charlie White in oral surgery, and Bambi Dura Oguntebi in endo. And one day I was talking to Bambi Dura. I was at his house. I was babysitting for his kid. He was going out with his wife Cammie, and I said, when I ask any teacher something, they usually got to look it up. Why do you always know everything in your head? Because I was trying to think of the trip. And you know what he told me?
Had to.
He said, dude, you're a white boy from Kansas. You know how hard it was for a black boy from Lagos, Nigeria to get in this school? He goes, I knew at a little age that guys like you could get away with murder, but I had to be bulletproof.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it is, I do. I mean, in my friend's experience in school, if you want to hear from the experience of the pioneer women in our profession, you need to talk to my friend. I'll give you her name after. But she talks about, it was a discriminatory environment, and emotion was not allowed. And so I think that that's something, one of the things I teach as part of my meditation teaching is also emotional intelligence. And we've spent years acting as though admitting we have emotions, dealing with our emotions in a positive manner, as though that's a weakness of some form, which it absolutely is not. All the studies and all the research shows that people who process their emotions in a positive way or manage them reasonably are more successful than people who don't. But for years, we've frowned upon having emotions in any situation that was considered professional. Right. So I was at a meeting for women attorneys, because I teach attorneys, doctors, and dentists. And I was at a meeting for women attorneys, and a woman shared a story of, and again, attorneys, actually, there's more women attorneys than there are women dentists. But those classes have been, more, one, they graduate more people. But 2, there's been more diversity there for a longer period of time. But she was talking about being actually disciplined in a courtroom for having an emotional moment. She was, trying to defend her client, and she said that she was very upset because she felt like the judge was sending her client to jail because he was poor. And she got emotional about it, and then she was disciplined. So I think that especially in a profession where we're dealing with patients appreciate compassion, care, and acknowledgement of their emotions. And women might be better at that. We kind of are, because we weren't raised to not be. Now, the women that were raised to not be, as far as those of us who went to professional school and were also disciplined for having emotions. I remember dental school, when I was in dental school, the instructors were not exactly kind. And I remember being emotional about it one day because every person has a breaking point. And I was told to redo something, I don't know, for the 78th time, and I had had enough. And I broke down. I started crying, but I knew I could not cry in that clinic. That was a known thing. I'm like, I cannot cry in this clinic. If I cry in this clinic, all my credibility is gone. So I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in. But I do think that dentistry and really all the professions would benefit from maybe a more compassionate environment, maybe something a little softer, maybe talking to people in a more productive way than insulting them to the point that they break down in tears. And I do think that is happening. I don't know that it's happening solely because we have more women. I think that culture in general is getting softer because we are acknowledging that emotions are not necessarily a negative thing. They're just part of life, and we need to learn to deal with them. So I think that the profession will be better for it as we age out of the good old boys club. I do.
And that is neat how you're saying that you hope. When I said, "Is women going to change?" You say, "Definitely." So and when I asked you, you corrected me. I said girls, and you said call them women. No, I want to know the deals because sometimes I get confused because you hear other girls say, "Come on, guys, let's go," and you're like, "Well, wait a minute, you're a girl, and you just asked two assistants and a hygienist. You just called them guys." And then the front desk. I mean, how would you like to have, well, you became a dentist. How would you like to, what did you become? Well, I always wanted to be a piece of furniture, and I chose the desk. My sister is a chair, and my mom is an ottoman. So what do you call the front desk? And can I, what is the proper thing to say? Like if I was going to go in the back room and there was all girls, and I was going to say, hey, I always say, hey, ladies, hey, girls.
There's anything wrong with any of it. I think it depends on the place it's coming from. So, don't feel like I only corrected you for the benefit of other people who might not know Howard well enough to know that Howard doesn't mean anything when he says that. Does that make sense?
Well, I named my show perfectly, Dentistry Uncensored, because I knew I had no filters. My mom used to always tell me when I was a little kid, she'd say, Howie, other people, they have a little birdie on their shoulder, and it always helps them tell them what not to say. And you don't have that birdie, and so you're never going to have any friends, and you're going to need to work for yourself because no one's going to hire you. And it's like okay, but so you can't. So what it depends. It matters of the heart. Any problem.
Yes, I think everything is better from the heart. So, and it really does matter who's saying what. And I know that doesn't make it easy for people because people want these hard and fast rules. You don't call me a girl or whatever. I don't get, Howard, you can call me a girl all day long. I know your heart and you don't mean anything degrading about that. But can you see that there might be circumstances where someone would say that and they might mean it in a degrading way? So for some of my friends, they're like attorneys and law is still a very male dominated career. As far as the men are at the top and the women are still working their way up there. And it's a hard environment. It's very serious, and in that environment, if the men were calling the women in the room girls, it would probably be degrading for them because they want to be equals. These are colleagues. They're all, partners in the firm or, that. So to say, hey, the girls over there, it does feel degrading. It's like my colleague. There's a big difference between saying that girl over there and my colleague. Does that make sense? It's an acknowledgement that I am equal to you, at least on credentialing levels.
Well, first answer, the last question, I'm going to go to the next one. What do you call the front desk?
Heather and Lori.
So, but as far as occupation, do you say, well, front desk does that? Do you call? I mean, what's the position? If you're
at my office, we have a scheduling receptionist, and then we have the receptionist, and we have an office manager. So everyone has a title,
but like a real title. Is fine. Receptionist is fine.
I don't have a problem with it personally, no, because that's mostly what she's doing is greeting people, and
you know what the biggest problem I have with all the talk about any subject.
Very hard.
Well, what I don't like about the talk about anything is I'm just hardcore, man. I mean, if everything I'll never forget when I studied geometry. My teacher was like in the 6th grade saying, this is the fundamental basis of all thinking. And to this day, if you can't measure it, not only can you not manage it, I'll take it farther. It doesn't even exist. It's in your mind. It's a figment of your imagination. I mean, it's got, and people always talk about humans. And I'm like, okay, now, if this is true, we got to get out of humans to at least a chimpanzee. And then we got to get to a mouse and an ant, and we have to get out of the complete freaking biosphere, because then we got to go into chemistry and physics and math. And I think the biggest, and I am well aware of the woman-man thing, because I grew up with 5 sisters. My brother wasn't born until I was gone, and I always saw my mom treating them very differently than me. She put me in jeans, and she put them in dresses, and she'd iron patches on the outside of my knees. And my sisters, if they soiled their dress, were in trouble. I could swim in the Arkansas River. They couldn't get within 10 feet, whatever. But what I'm most interested in, and I think you should do this, is of the great apes, there's humans, chimpanzees, orangutans, and bonobos is a matriarch society. And it's the only one that's an ape. And then when you go see the biggest animal that ever lived, the blue whale, the little female swims down the middle, and the big males are on the outside. And whenever I hear these debates from lawyers or dentists about women management, women leaders, all that stuff, I just say, well, what is the main takeaway of the difference in your research between how a matriarch bonobos goes about business versus the male matriarch, I don't know, chimpanzee, orangutan, or a human? And you just hear crickets. And then it's like, okay, so this is just all hearsay, it's all opinions. And then the other thing they do is they always try to blame it on something like the sex deal. It used to be, well, the priests were doing it. And then it was like, well, then Penn State was doing it. And then it was like, well, Hollywood's doing it. How about all animals in the animal kingdom are doing it all day, every day, and quit trying to blame it on, Penn State, But so have you ever thought about writing a book, how to manage like a bonobos bitch?
No, but I love the title.
You got to, Dawn, because you got a 12-year-old daughter, and so look, what's the difference between a human and a chimpanzee? So not
a lot.
Well, in a Homo sapien, the males are bigger than the females. Right. But in the chimpanzees are the same size.
Okay, I was not aware.
So what does that mean? It means the bigger male of the Homo sapien, he'll get the majority of the women, and he'll make 80% of the babies. But a chimpanzee, since they're the same size, it's just everybody's doing everybody. And then,
is there a room for some form of charm in that culture? Like, if it's not based on size, could it be based on something else?
It is size, and it's the size of their testicles, which are about the size of a tennis ball. And their evolutionary strategy is that if I can release 4 million seeds and you release 3 million, I'll be better. But the bonobos, I find the most interesting, and I'm a man, and I can't write that book. Could you imagine me coming out with trying to lecture to women about everything from a bonobo? They look at me and they'd say, well, you're a man, you have a wanker. How could you know anything about women with a wanker? But you could do it. Why don't you commit? Because you could find the world's leading bonobos expert, and she could give you the math, and then you are already a doctor, business owner, operator, everything, and you guys could really transfer some knowledge to some other people that might really help them.
I am going to look up bonobos later, but I don't know if that's where my passion lies, Howard.
Well, that's because maybe you looked at the ugly one, but I'll send you. I'll send you the prettiest little bonobos. Yeah, I mean, every time I've ever gone to the San Diego Zoo, I remember with the boys telling my boys at the San Diego Zoo, about this deal. I said, well, you're 4 boys, and your mother grew up with 5 boys and no sisters. But did you know, and they thought it was very cool. But I can't.
How are mates chosen by a bonobos?
Well, I don't want to go there now because as far as I know, I only have like 3 bonoboses that watch my program. That I'm not really crushing it in the bonobos part. But I want to go into some more things because that was showing you sincerity that I seriously mean that. The other thing you can't talk about is homosexuality, sex, all that stuff like that. And in 32 years, I cannot tell you how many dental office consultants say, well, my women dentists, they just have more problems with their staff than the male dentist.
Really?
And, well, I mean, they've said on my podcast, I've had 10 dental consultants say on my podcast, but they all agree that women dentists work the best with a male homosexual office manager or employees or just male assistants. The assistant could just be male. But if it's going to be the bonobos, the head bonobos of the office for the female dentist, it's a gay male.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never worked in my office is all women. I've employed 2 men in my career, and they were both doctors, and they were both straight, as far as I know. But I will say, as a woman in general, that relationships with homosexual men are much easier. It removes a whole bunch of nonsense that women don't truly understand. I've had multiple disappointments in my life where I thought someone liked me because they thought I was smart or because they enjoyed my personality and spending time with me. And it turns out that they were pursuing me in some sexual manner. Women don't like that. I would like you to like me as a person. I would like it to not have to be about that. And with a homosexual man, it's never about that. So all that nonsense is gone. All that tension, all that worry, all of that is gone. So it is an easier relationship. But as far as how it works in the office, I don't know that it would even matter. My office manager is a woman. We've worked together for 15 years. I can't imagine not having her.
Well, the first part of what's this first LVA is it may have a problem. So self-awareness, until a human realizes it's a problem, they're not going to listen to anything.
You're not going to do a darn thing. Yeah.
And so many people waste so much time talking to someone. When the mind's ready, they'll ask.
Absolutely.
And so it wouldn't benefit you because you've been self-awareness, you've been cerebral for a long time. But man, if you're a young girl and you're or a woman,
you say whatever comes comfortably to you, Howard. I didn't mean to.
Okay.
You're not offending me.
If you're stressed out and you're young and you're running like a bull elephant and you feel like these women pansies are bouncing off of you and you're mad at them, you might consider bringing your husband into the business to be the business, or a gay male, a strong male. But anyway, so what are you most passionate about now? Is it lecturing?
Yeah, no, I really do. I love the lecturing. I love the teaching. I have private students. I teach in practices, and I love the lecturing. And it's exactly what you said about the self-awareness, though. Like when you do a lecture, so when I have a private student or a practice comes to me wanting help, there's a person who's already aware enough to know they need help. So I say they're already halfway down the road. They go, this is a problem, and this is something that might help. When I lecture, you don't know who's in the audience, different varying levels of awareness, varying levels of readiness for something different. But to me, the fact that they pick my lecture over whatever else is going on,
So is this all dental meetings usually?
I've taught it. No, not always. No, like I said, I teach in healthcare. I teach in.
So, but you like the room because they chose your course over other courses.
Right. So they chose my course, which tells me there was some curiosity they have. Now, whether it's in their full awareness of why they chose that or not, I know that I have some fertile ground. And my job as a teacher truly is just to plant the seed. I know that my experience with meditation practice took 10 years before it took. Davidji was not the first teacher I ever had. It was not the first retreat I had ever been on. I'd been playing with that crap for years. But I didn't make the commitment until I met the teacher that spoke to me. But the seed was planted 10 years prior by someone else. So when I'm in a room and I'm lecturing, I'm just trying to plant a seed. I'm trying to find some common ground with the people in the room, which is why I stick with, that's why I feel at home with professional people, is because I feel like our journey has been very much the same. And I'm just hoping to plant a seed. And sometimes it takes, sometimes it doesn't. That's not on me. No different than when you're trying to tell your patient to floss, brush, and stop it with the meth and Mountain Dew. You're planting a seed. Maybe some of them will do it, some of them won't, but at least you put it out there. So I've put it out there. I go, here's this tool, here's this thing that has helped me tremendously. It's out there. It's ready for you when you're ready. And then you just kind of wait.
I imagine
when they're ready, they're ready.
I imagine it'd be very rare because on the subject of, stress, anxiety, you think all the people that overcame that wouldn't want to be a public speaker. I mean, public speaking is still considered one of the most stressful things, even though I've never been at a funeral and everybody says, thank God she's not up there public speaking. I'd rather her be in a pine box than giving a lecture. So how did you go from these thoughts of anxiety to a lecture? I mean, that seems like...
Well, so you're right. Speaking, and it's so not in my nature, but I tell people to be careful about that. Like every time you say I'm a person who, you're putting yourself in a box. So I encourage people to stop doing that. But for most of my life, I would have avoided public speaking like crazy. But I feel so passionate about the message of what I have learned and how much it has helped me. And when I first started my teacher training, so I started teacher training, I think, kind of late in the year 2015. And as soon as I started the training, so not even my certification, which didn't come until, months after, people started asking me to teach them because it's very much known. We see articles every day. Any day you go on any news page, there's something there about some new research about meditation and how it's benefiting people.
I sent you one I emailed you one the other yesterday on Sunday.
There's tons.
Did you see that one?
I didn't. You're going to have to send it again. Maybe you didn't.
But anyway, go ahead.
So there's tons of that. So everyone is kind of aware that it's out there, but nobody really knows how to do it. And most of our colleagues are a little leery of places like yoga studios.
And why is that?
Well, because you're out of your element. I think you're totally out of your element. Personally, I'm in a small town. I don't really want to go places where I'm going to interact with patients or have to talk about, that I'm having stress or anxiety in front of my patients. I don't want to be in that environment. So for me, flying on an airplane to the other side of the country and learning it there made more sense. But people started asking me, and the stories they were telling me as to where they were at and why they were reaching out for this help made me realize that our colleagues are hurting. They're hurting so deeply. And it just kind of happened that they started asking me, and I was like, well, shit, this is something I have to give. I went through the teacher training very selfishly. I'm like, I'm going to learn everything there is to know about this. It was very much for me. I'm like that. I'm a sponge. If there's something I'm interested in, I'm like, give me every book on the subject. I want it. But then when people started asking me and I started hearing their stories and realizing how badly we need this, we need something other than pills and booze to get us through the days and to help us cope with life. And when I realized that I had that thing and I was qualified to teach it and that I was doing kind of okay at that, I was very excited to give it. So I look forward to the lectures. Do I get nervous right before? Yes. But usually once I start talking, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like once I'm going, because I gave a lecture, maybe a couple months ago, and it was a big group. It was the biggest group I had had yet. And the guy who was there to introduce me, I had never met him before. And he's like, you doing okay? Are you feeling okay? And I did this with my hand. I'm like, I'm good. I feel confident about this stuff. And I'm so passionate about it that for me, the opportunity to tell other people about it is so exciting that overcomes all of the anxiety.
Did you do anything like speakers clubs, or they have Toastmasters or anything like that?
No, that sounds like a nightmare to me. That would make me more anxious than talking in front of a room. I don't think I needed that. Honestly, I think for me, the speaking is almost natural because when you're passionate about it and you believe in it, it just kind of comes. Does that make sense? I don't think I need all that.
This August 4th will be my 30th anniversary of lecturing, and it's been over 1,000 lectures in 50 countries, whatever. And I always tell people that if I asked you, I mean, you've been married for what, 20 years?
Almost, yeah.
Almost 20 years. You got a daughter and 2 dogs. And I said, Dawn, let's go to lunch, and I just want you to tell me all about your husband, your kid, and your 2 dogs for 1 hour. And you said, well, damn, I'm going to have to make a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to need some charts. And then I would think something was wrong with you. And in my biz, like I did stand, my other cross training was stand up, right? And in the comedy deal, It's just you and a microphone. And we don't even like the people who have the hand puppet thing, any prop, like Carrot Top. It's like,
Yes.
why don't
Oh,
you just,
God.
why don't you just start, so I see the dentist, and they're so fumbling on their slides and they're so doing all this stuff. And it's a miserable presentation. And then later that night, you're at the bar and he's just crushing it, or the next morning you're out there fishing for redfish in the Gulf. And I'm just like, why didn't you talk like that yesterday? I mean, I just asked you, do you like Thermophill? And you said, hell no, I hate that shit. But in class, you read all this stuff. I didn't even know what you said, and I'm the one that asked the question. Why don't you just be normal like you're in a fishing boat? But, get rid of the suit, get rid of the tie, get rid of all the props, and go out there
Yeah.
and just have a heart-to-heart like you would with
Yes.
someone you love, like your dog or your daughter or your husband.
So this might be something that people who teach meditation say, but which means wooey people, right? But I was very nervous when I first started teaching, and I'm very grateful. A lot of people gave me opportunities, and I was very nervous, and I was texting with a friend of mine who's also a meditation teacher. She's not a doctor. She works at a bakery right now, I think. So but she's a very skilled teacher. And I said, I'm so nervous. And, I did the slides because when you go to a healthcare or any kind of meeting, you have to have some sort of something going on behind you. So I'm like, I did all this stuff, but I'm just so nervous. And she said to me, best advice I've been given about the speaking and the teaching. She said, just love them. She said, just love them. And I thought, God, so profound. And it's so true. So I do that every time before, if I start getting myself worked up, I'm like, I have one job here. To show them some love, to show them what
that is beautiful, man. That is
and it works every time. It takes all that nervousness away, because it's true that we don't get much of that. Love is it seems like it's scarce. It's the most abundant thing in the world, but it feels so scarce sometimes, right? So if I can make myself a vessel of that, a vessel of this passion of wanting to help you heal, wanting to help you have a better life, wanting to help you have the life you want to have, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be the life I think you should have. I don't even have an opinion on that, quite honestly. But if I can go into a room and just bring the love, it's like something nobody's ever done before. It always blows people away.
My favorite growing up was the paradoxical commandments, and which the Catholics all stole it and say it's Mother Teresa's. Where they all attribute it to Mother Teresa, but it's written in Harvard, and it was called the Paradoxical Commandments, and I just love it. It's the poem anyway. People are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you're a win. False friends and true enemies succeed anyway. The good you do will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honestly and frankness make your vulnerability. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spent years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People will really need help, but may attack you if you help them. Help them anyway. Give the world the best you have, and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you've got anyway.
Anyway, exactly.
And I love that. And
I love that too.
And Mother Teresa Calcutta had that hanging on her wall behind her. So, of course, it just makes a better story to say she wrote it, but who cares? And another way I tell my boys to do it is I said, look, now, I mean, come on, you've all watched a horror movie. I mean, all the humans have pretty much lived in the last 50,000 years. I said, we're 100, the cemetery's got 110 billion people. There's only 8 billion here. So we're at a party. Almost everybody at the party's dead. Could you imagine going to a dental convention where over 95% of all the dentists were just dead? So it's like, why do you care what people think?
Get stuck in the little details that don't matter at all.
Yeah, because there's 110 billion dead people. You'll soon be dead in short time. So why do you care what other people think when 90% of all the people are dead? I just, and my mother said that was a fault I had, that she's, that I was miswired, and maybe so, but,
Mothers can be so kind, and then so not.
So what are you more passionate about now? Is it clinical dentistry, lecturing, sharing this, surviving dentistry with more meditation, or where's your heart and passion now?
Well, I mean, I do love the work I do every day. So I've cut back on my clinical hours because my teaching has taken off. So I'm in the office less, but I'm still in the office 3.5 days a week, 4 days a week, depending on the week. But it's funny because one of the things that my meditation teaching and practicing has given me is I don't really have this vision of something I'm trying to create in the future. I take what comes. You know what I mean? I'm taking what's coming. I'm going with the flow, and my teaching is taking off more than I thought it would, and I'm just going with it. I'm just going with it.
So it's taking more. It means you're traveling more, or
I'm traveling more. I'm teaching more. Yeah, I definitely.
Now,
I still love my practice. I have no plans of giving up this place. My practice, I worked for years to make it a place that I loved being. And I do like coming here. One of the things, I run a group on Facebook about this stuff. And we have about 1,200 of our colleagues in my group. And one of the things that comes up a lot is people who have the Sunday dread. So Sunday night, they are filled with dread. I got to go to work tomorrow. And I don't have that. I don't have that. You know what I dread? I dread getting up in the morning because I'm a lazy person and I like laying in the bed. Beyond that, it's I don't want to get up in general. It's not that I don't want to go to work. It's that I'd rather lay in bed, at least for a little while longer. But I don't have that. And I don't have it because, again, I've created an office that I like being in. I have really great relationships with my staff and with my patients. And even the ones I don't enjoy that much, I find something about them I like and I work with it. And I can't see giving this up because that's a question I get a lot is people go, oh, are you going to quit practicing and just do the teaching? It's like, no, I enjoy practicing dentistry. I worked hard to make this practice a place I want to be. And now that I have that.
And it's your street cred. I mean,
absolutely it is. If I'm not doing this, who's going to listen to me that it helps?
And what do you think there, and back to these 1,200 people following you on your Facebook group. What's the name of your Facebook group?
My Facebook group is called Stress Management and Mindfulness for Professionals.
Could you get one longer? I'm going to
write. So here's my,
you know what you should call it? You should, I want you to change the name of your group to Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Just for no apparent reason.
Here's my thing. If I called it meditation for dentists, no one would want to join my group. People are afraid of meditation. They don't like the word. They think it's some weird religious practice. It's something that scares them because it's unknown. So I do kind of hide that from the get-go, and then I present it in a way where I go, wait a minute, it's not scary. So stress management and mindfulness was something that we came up with is a way, and it is. I mean, it's lying.
Stress management, stress, STRESS, manage, spelled out the whole word.
Yep.
Management. What else?
I don't speak in Twitter talk. I spell all of my words fully.
Stress management.
And mindfulness for professionals.
And mindfulness for professionals?
Correct. Are you looking for my group? Do you want me to just add you to it?
No. When I got to 300,000 followers on Facebook,
you don't want that.
No, I stopped. I quit.
I don't blame you.
I got to 300,000 and it was I don't know. I don't I don't want to go there. That's a whole nother topic. But I don't know. These companies they abuse their own customers. I mean, like Apple Computer. Every time they come out with a new Apple, they're making it so you have to buy a new charger. But then if someone
my laptop.
But if someone makes another charger, they'll actually put a lot of technology into figuring out that it's not their charger and then make it not work. And now you have Zuckerberg out there lecturing about how TikTok is owned by a Chinese company and they may be stealing your information and selling it to China. Bitch, you're stealing the information and selling it to China and Putin. And TikTok lost that whole millennial market. I mean, the 18 to 30.
Because of that?
TikTok is number one now with, I think, 17 to 30 or whatever.
My daughter wants it, and I told her no.
And why did you tell her no? Why did you tell her no?
I don't know, because I don't know anything about it. And I want to keep her off social media for as long as humanly possible.
Okay, but if you didn't want her to do it because you thought the Chinese might spy
No,
on her,
there's nothing about that. No, it's that I want to keep her away from social media for as long as possible. I wanted to read you a quote when we were talking about love. It reminded me of this, and I had to look it up. This is Hafiz. It says, "When all your desires are distilled, you will cast just 2 votes: to love more and be happy." And that was the cover photo for my group for a long time, because I think that, so many of us, we're on this path to success, and we think success is the salary, the boat, the car, the bigger house, the 4th house. And really, success comes when we live from a place of love. And when we do that, we're happy.
So say the quote again. Start again.
It's when all your desires are distilled, you will cast but 2 votes: to love more and be happy.
Okay. To love more and be happy.
Correct. In other words, if I asked you, Howard, at the end of your life, what would you want to have experienced? Would you say it was important that I made so much money as a dentist? And no, it would be those 2 things, right? I'm trying to teach people how to love more and be happy, in addition to being dentists. And I'm telling you, when you bring those things to your practice, you've never had better relationships with your patients. Those are the things that build your practice. And I think it's something that's kind of lost. And a lot of people kind of laugh that off. They go, she wants to talk about love at a dental meeting.
And who was that? Who said that speech? You said
that's Hafiz. He's an ancient Sufi poet.
And spell that name.
Hafiz.
I'll tell you where I'm. How my mind is so bizarre. Like when you first tell me anything, when anybody tells me anything, it's like, okay, I know you're a sapien and you let them stand in front of your mirror and take selfies. And I know there's nothing. I mean, when you ask a sapien what makes a sapien happy, it's just, they just love sapiens. They can't look at themselves. And I always say, whatever you're saying, at least get me to a chimpanzee or an orangutan. And if you really, really, that's if you can't measure, I mean, if you can't associate this with one right angle, I mean, the laws of addition and subtraction. So I do like the science side of it. And in the science, I find
the science of meditation is that it makes people happy.
And
it's on paper.
I think the funniest thing about the science crowd is there's a lot of people in the science crowd that say they're atheist and they don't like the religious crowd, and then they act just like the religious crowd, where they have all these blind beliefs that are not anchored in anything. And it's like, but I love sapien, because I always think about this: what if you had been born on Earth and you were the only one? I mean, that'd be weird.
It would
and
be.
I love other sapiens. Now,
there wouldn't be books, because there'd be no other sapiens to have written them.
Yeah, and so it's a double-edged sword.
I could do alone with books, Howard. I'm not going to lie. I think I could do it.
Well, yeah, because you only live one life, and you can just sit down and just be another person in 4, 5, 6 hours. Everything they picked up, I just love that. So this new transfer of knowledge. You say book. I'm old school. I still like to sit down in a chair with a book, and I like my book. I have
real books. Yeah, I don't do Kindle. I have a real book.
You don't do Kindle? Do you do audiobooks?
Kindle, but I don't like it. I don't really do audiobooks either. No, I like books. I like to feel them. I underline things in them. I like to flip pages back. So yeah, for me, a book, it's like I have a whole system. And so I want a physical book. I had a Kindle, and I know they say you can highlight and whatever. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm a paper person. I like paper.
And if you're still in school or you got kids in school, let me tell you, the secret to reading and get an A on every test is the human mind is complex. It spends half its life in a daydream. I mean, you sleep 8 hours a day. Yeah. And sometimes you're driving down the road and you're thinking about something else.
Yep.
But the research is coming in pretty clear that sapien spends about half its life in a daydream, which is because it lives to be 100 years. I mean, if you're going to be a cricket and last 3 months, this isn't going to be a problem.
Focus.
But there's only a few animals that made it to 100 years, and we're one of them. So they daydream a lot. It's a coping mechanism. Then when you put them in prison, They go completely into their mind, and hell, they're happy, they're married, they got 5 kids, a job, they're talking to the wall, they don't even know all that stuff. But when you're trying to comprehend, I like to read, because when you're done with the chapter, you just say, well, the teacher's a human too. There's nothing special about the human, and she's got to write test questions from this chapter. So you just read this chapter. Write down your test question. Now you're the teacher. So write down the test questions.
That's a good way to read.
And my God, you'll make so many friends in school when they come up to you and say, Howard, there was 40 questions on the test. You gave me 112 questions. Every frickin' one of them was on the test. And I'm like, well, who did you think was writing the test? An
Just
alien from Pluto?
Yeah. No, that's actually a great study strategy.
Yeah, so just be the teacher. Be the teacher. So are you so I was asking that, are you reaching more people digital, online, physical? Is this something that more has to be in person? And what about like Bikram yoga? I think a lot of people, the minute you say meditation, like my mind just translates as, oh, she means Bikram yoga.
See, this is why I had to call my group Stress Management and Mindfulness, Howard, because we all have these preconceived notions about meditation. Bikram yoga is a completely different thing. One, that Bikram person is one of the craziest human beings on the planet.
Right.
And I didn't know that we should be listening to him for much of anything. I have a friend that had a Bikram studio, and as soon as all that stuff came out about him, she changed the name of her studio. But
she probably got out of her contract too, though.
I don't know anything.
Oh yeah, he ran out. If he shows up in the United States, he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life.
What a craziness! But so that's what you think of when you think of meditation?
Well, the first thing I think of is yoga. Well, because for me, I hated yoga and all that. I hated all that stuff because you like when you go to a normal yoga class, I'm staring
You're talking about physical yoga, hatha yoga. Okay.
Yeah, I'm staring at you the whole time, wanting to know what the hell the next move is. What was genius about Bikram is he says it's 26 poses. We did them twice. So you knew when you did this, you were half done. Right. So I just could get in the zone, knowing what the plan was. And then I go to that, and then when they close it down because of his sexcapades, every time I go to yoga class, it's like following a drunk cat running all around the bleachers. It's like,
I hear you. And I can't see. Like I was at a yoga class just a couple weeks ago, and I can't see. They're like, go down dog and now bear, and I go, well, I don't know what bear is, so I'm like looking between my legs, trying to see what they're doing. So it is hard when you don't know. Now, hatha yoga is not my thing. That's not what I teach. Okay. And again, you're speaking to my point that there's a lot of people in our profession who are not comfortable in yoga studios, and that's where a lot of meditation is being doled out. It's not the only place, but that's where a lot of it is happening. And a lot of us, we don't want to wear the yoga pants and go to the place, and we don't want to do that. So there are other ways of getting those teachings. Now, just for the sake of factual knowledge, yoga is not just those poses. Yoga is a system, and it involves those poses as one part of it. So the rest of it is actually like a really kind of nice way to learn to live your life. But read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I'm going to make a list of books I'm sending Howard after this is over. But so in the Western world, we have perverted yoga into fitness. Okay, so yoga means union. It was supposed to be a way of, when you are in those poses, you have to really control your breath. And that is part of where the meditation comes in. When you're in a place where you are, one arm's up and one arm's down, it's like playing Twister, right? You can't really think about much of anything other than where your hands are, where your body is, and breathing, because breathing in those poses is very important. So there is a meditation or meditative element to that physical yoga, but that's not normally what's being pushed in those classes. Usually that's fitness. It's people wanting to be more flexible, wanting to be thinner, wanting to be fit. What I'm teaching is just a traditional brain exercise of meditation. So it's a way of centering your awareness on a point, and that point can be your breath. It can be other things too. People use mantras and things like that, but breath is the simplest start, and I always start my students with the breath, and then we move into mantras and other things until we find the thing that works for them. But yes, I do that digitally. I teach a lot on Skype. Not every student when I have private students, I teach them a lot on Skype. And it's nice to have a teacher, because a lot of people are trying to use an app and the app doesn't talk back and it becomes hard. And people are going, the most common thing I hear from people who were taught by an app is that they tried to do it, but they couldn't. There's no trying or not trying, and there's no can and can't. It's, did you sit and go through the exercise? Yes, then you did it. But people don't know that, and the app isn't telling them that. So I like for people to have a teacher. Teacher doesn't have to be me. There are lots of teachers. But you don't have to have it in a yoga studio. So I teach, you can see behind me, there's a little couch. I teach on that couch sometimes. If someone is local, they can come to my office. Sometimes when I'm local to them, because I do travel a lot, I will go to them and I will teach them. But most of my private students these days are on Skype. I do have private students locally also, and I will travel to them. My lectures are all over the place. You know how lecturing is. If only you could have a lecture career 20 miles from your house. It's just not how that works. So I do that a lot. And then in practices, most of the practices I have worked in have been local at this point.
Okay. And what percent of those practices are dentistry?
The practices I have worked in are 0% dentistry. My private students are probably about 80% dentistry. But the practices who have hired me have been law firms and medical practices. That's where I've been working mostly, in practices.
And I guess where why I sent you that deal, I'll send it to you again, but on Dental Town, I called something, this study, and I put it under transcendental meditation. And they're like, dude, that is not transcendental meditation. And well, let me just read you. I'll read you the one on Twitter. I'll read you the one on Twitter. Jason Lutchfield, he's a good buddy of yours. I love Jason. On Twitter, he said, I've been reading there are positive effects, physical and mental, with any meditation, also physical activity. Another person says, indeed, we found that 3-month practice at TM led to reduction in perceived stress and anxiety, and that those changes were associated with changes in functional cognitivity. Thus, no direct causal effect of TN on brain changes. And then she goes, Howard, thank you for your interest in our work. However, I should point out that we did not demonstrate that TM can counteract dysfunction brain changes with anxiety or stress. And, so anyway, I was going to say, are you more on, are you mostly Facebook, not Twitter?
I'm mostly, I have a Twitter, I think, but I probably just did it because someone sent me something and I had to get an account to look at it, so I don't ever go on there. But, so TM, just so we're clear, TM is a brand of meditation, right? So it's a school of meditation, and it's basically a mantra meditation. So they give people a personal mantra, and that becomes the tool by which they increase their awareness. Any meditation tool can work. Most studies I see done on meditation are done using MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, which the reason that is so long is for the same reason that my group name is so long. It's because Jon Kabat-Zinn knew that the medical school he was teaching at didn't want to hear about meditation, so he called it mindfulness-based stress reduction. And now when you see studies about meditation, the vast majority of those studies are MBSR. But MBSR it's a breathing technique. It's all the same stuff. It's just that people are branding it and packaging it, just as what happens with things as they become popular. You said that study was saying something about it reducing depression, anxiety. I have a study I can send you. I should send you all my studies. You seem interested.
I do. I do. I wish you'd post them on that meditation thread, because there's a lot of people
I'll
interested
look for it,
on
and that's
that
on
thread.
Dental.
Yeah,
that's on Dental Town.
Yeah,
okay, I'll go and look at that.
I'll
make sure
send
to
you
pull
the
that
deal.
up tomorrow.
I'll send you the deal, because what I like about that is then it's archived.
No, for sure, and you can go back to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a study that showed that meditation was as effective in treating depression and anxiety as antidepressant medication. So I have that study, and I use it when I lecture, if I'm lecturing doctors in particular. But we have to be careful about those things, because we want people to take their medication. You know what I mean? So,
but why do you want them to take their medication?
Well, because I think that people's problems are a lot of times complex, and I think that that's for them and their doctor to work out. I think that if they're on a medication that's helping them, meditation could be a great adjunct. It could be something we could add on. But I would never encourage someone to stop taking their medication and replace it with a meditation practice without consulting the doctor who gave them that medication. Not all life problems, mostly what I'm doing with people is I'm teaching them how to deal with stress and burnout. And stress and burnout are not diagnoses. When you have a problem that is a diagnosis, I think you need to work on that with your doctor. Not saying meditation can't be a great tool to help you deal with these things, but I think that, we need to be clear about the difference between people who are having mental health problems and people who are just stressed out, and maybe not coping well in life.
Yeah, and then what's really amazing is, the pyramid. We just show up 5,000 years ago, and so we haven't been here very long, and it's probably going to be 5,000 more years before they understand how this whole tool even works. So we'll
Yes,
we'll spend our whole life living under this cloud of unknown unknowns, and we think we know a lot because we put a rocket on the moon, and we got a couple of we got a
We know so little.
I know.
We know so little. I just read a book. It's kind of off subject. I read a book by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Do you like him?
Well, I mean, he's never
love
published. I love him, but he's never published anything. And so, I take it with a grain of salt. I mean, he's very different mind than, say, Hawking's or someone. I mean,
Right. No, I hear you.
He's a great mediator. He's a medium.
Yes.
He's good looking. He speaks well. He's
Yes.
funny. He's a good deliverer. He's a good medium to deliver the information.
Yes. And that's the key. I think that's key with meditation teaching too, by the way, is you have to find the translator that speaks to you. I have no original material. None. All of the material that I teach is material that is, some of it's thousands of years old, and it's just been translated and translated and translated. So you need to find the translator that speaks to you. So I read a book by Neil deGrasse Tyson because of all of the things you just cited. He's charming. He's very smart. And he's fun. Like, he presents that stuff in a fun way, but it's called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. And I read that book. God, I felt dumb. I read that book. I'm like, God, I know nothing. And what you realize is I know nothing. These astrophysicists only know like this much, like it's this tiny little drop in the bucket. And some of it might not even be correct. It's just correct for where we sit now in history. So it was a really fascinating book. If you like that perspective of how small we are and how little we know, it was very interesting.
So you quoted Hafiz, and he passed away. And what are your thoughts on him, the Persian poet?
He passed away many, many moons ago, correct?
Yeah.
I actually have several books by Hafiz, and
I mean, not a long time. It was only 1300. I mean, come on, you're just talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, and that the universe was 13.8 billion. But yeah, so what do you think about him, and why do you think he was so profound back then?
I think, and it's very interesting to me as I study this stuff. It seems as though humans have had the human part of life figured out for quite a long time. In other words, why we feel certain ways about certain things and how we respond in situations and what we do and don't control and the choices that we make. Those things have been documented for, I don't know, a couple thousand years now, but we seem to need to relearn them over and over and over again. And I think Hafiz was one of these people who was blessed with a level of wisdom that that probably wasn't uncommon for his time, but he was good at putting it on paper. Poetry is, it's like music without music, right? And he wrote a lot of lovely poems. I have several. This is another one of my favorites. He says, the small man builds cages for everyone he knows, while the sage, who has to duck his head when the moon is low, keeps dropping keys all night for the beautiful, rowdy prisoners. So small people want to keep you in a box. The wise people are kind of giving you gifts. They're planting those seeds. They're giving you freedom. And Hafiz, is one of those people. He was out there dropping keys. I love him. And
on that note, I love you. I do. I really do. I have always respected you. You've done a lot for me. You've had a lot of wisdom. I mean, my gosh, I know before you went to Facebook, you had 7,528 posts from 2000 to 2018. I have 5 sisters. I mean, I really emotionally consider you a sister.
Aw, I have loved you for a long time, Howard. I told you this not all that long ago, but when I got to know you as a person, not just as Howard, It was when I was having my lawsuit in my practice, and I was very young, and I was overwhelmed. I was like, how is this happening to me? I borrowed all this money and the world is falling. And Howard Ferran, who has a beautiful heart, sent me a message on Facebook with his personal cell phone number and said, call me. I'd like to talk to you. And nobody does that. You know that, right, Howard? Nobody does that. Nobody reaches out for, to a stranger and offers, a very nice pep talk. It just doesn't happen. And a lot of times people, they'll kick you when you're down. You get a lot of that. Well, you should have known better and whatever, blah, blah. You didn't do that to me. You gave me the talking numbers. You go, how much you got to spend? How much could you win? Well, duh. But it was something that I needed, that encouragement at the time. And I am eternally grateful for that. Eternally grateful.
Oh, that's so sweet. But that's a good point, because a lot of times you're stressed, you're busy because you don't want to, you can't miss his wedding, or you can't miss his funeral. Well, first of all, at a funeral, he's freaking dead. He doesn't know.
He doesn't care if you're there. Yeah.
But yeah, but don't go to all the fun stuff if you don't have time to be there when they need you. And like I say, they'll only, the patient only, I have so many patients that only remember the time I met him on a Saturday or after hours or whatever, and you were down there with your 2 or 3 or 4 boys in a car.
The human part of you, yes.
Yeah, they don't remember anything else. But, yeah.
That crown didn't mean anything to them.
And and then I wish you'd, and then one last thing, I just want to go. I know we got to go, but my gosh, I think one of the greatest joys is not having to be a partner. And so why? Yeah. I mean, why would you want to be a partner? I have so many people that sit there and say, well, you give me all these reasons why it's good for a partner. And where do they always get all the reasons? From people who make $500,000 a year selling partnerships. And, it's like, yeah,
so as a business partner. As a business partner.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're married, that's a lot of give and take. You know what I mean? I'll never get married again. And I never did have a business partner. In fact, you know who really my only partner was? Is Samir and T-Bone wanted to do that townie meeting.
Yeah.
And we did it on the phone. There was no contracts. There was no handshake. Just 3 guys who thought it'd be cool, and it worked out perfectly.
Yes, because they're good guys. Yeah, you found the right people. It was a gamble, right? You found the right people.
Yeah. So, and if contracts by people with bad heart are made to be broken and all that stuff like that. But I think one of the greatest joys of owner-operated independent practice is that I don't have to have a teacher or a prison warden, or I'm just like I know when I want to not get up and go into work, I realize, well, I own the place. Howard, you actually don't have to. And that kind of, and then you feel like, well, this is weird.
Yeah, but I should. Yeah.
I can't call in sick to myself.
No, I had a partner, I think for 8 years, and I'll be very honest about how it happened. And I told this to one of my students who's a young dentist the other day. I was scared. This is the God's honest truth, Howard, because I think you're right, and I agree with you. I think that people who are wanting to be in this career, for the most part, partly want to do it because they don't want to have to consult with other people. You know what I mean? You want to follow your own heart and do your own thing. But when I was looking at buying a practice, it was a very scary step. I was 28 years old. I was fresh out of school. I didn't really have a dental mentor. In other words, I didn't have an older dentist who was like giving me good advice or really gave a shit about me at all. I mean, I didn't have that. So, when I started looking at practices, it really seemed appealing to do it with someone else. It was like a icky codependent thing. I'm going to be, you know what I mean? Like it was not my wisest of choices. It wasn't, but I made it when I was younger, and it served its purpose for the time. When I had a partner, it did allow me to have a baby and take time off with some ease. I say time off, I took like 3 weeks, but still that was really hard to do. But in the long term, it did not work out, and I would not advise people having partners. I think having someone else in your checking account and someone else in your business is nasty business. It can be. So I think it's better. Why not just have another doctor that you work with? Treat them well.
Why not just have an org chart? I mean, it's like if you had if instead of one god, there's 2 gods of lightning and thunder. Well, that you just added all this entropy, and we need an org chart, and that's the same thing I say when people say, "Well, I think I'm going to have my spouse work in the office." Like, I don't care. I'm your spouse. I need an org chart, and if I say we're going north and they run to you and you tell them we're going south, well, then I'm going to have to shoot you.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and I don't want to have to shoot you, but I will absolutely shoot you because I don't care if we're going the right way or the wrong way. We need an org chart or we're not going anywhere.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to have core values that you share as a group, and you have to have a plan of where you're going. And everyone needs to be on the same page. And when it's not that way, it's easy when it's a staff person or someone who just works for you. They're not on the same page. Okay, well, then go work for somebody who you are on the same page with. When it's the person who owns the other 50% of your practice, it's trickier. So, yeah, I advise against that all the time.
And when you divorce your little trophy wife, you think it was a nightmare. But when you divorce somebody who got an A in physics. I mean, I know dentists who spent 6 years in court and spent over $500,000 on legal fees, and they never smiled again. I mean, going to war with someone who got an A in physics is 10 times worse than going to war with your ex. In fact, you know what? One of the things I got to brag about is when I got fired from my wife, my ex, well, really, when my ex fired me, I was really, really busy, and I went over to her law firm, and the lady said to me, she goes, well, where's your attorney? I said, well, what are you doing? She goes, well, we've written this up, and we want you to review this, your attorney. And I sit there, and I flipped it all over, and I said, what do you want me to sign? And she goes, well, I said, look, I'm not going to war with the mother of my 4 kids. Where do I sign? And I signed that, and they both broke out crying and weirded out and all that stuff. And she said she'd never seen that before. But it's like, choose your battles, man. I'm not going to war.
Sure.
I'm not going to war with the mother of my 4 kids. But I'm not intentionally designing entropy while it's still on paper by marrying a man dentist that I don't have sex with. I tell people, if you want to get a partner, make sure you have great sex with them. And if you don't have that, there's no other reason. Because a dictator is happier than a sexless.
A business partner is a spouse without the love. You know what I mean? Like,
but when you say business partner, is that on an org chart or a stock ownership?
No, I'm saying stock ownership. So when I had a business partner, it was like having another spouse, but there with no love there. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a love-based relationship.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this for my breakup with my partner. We had already been through a 7-year legal battle, the two of us, with a third party. And neither of us wanted to do that ever again. And so when we decided that this was not going to work, it was very simple. Because we both said, we're like, look, we're going to do this. We're going to say this isn't working. We're going to sign the papers. We're going to split a bottle of wine and be done. And we did that, minus the wine. We didn't end up doing that. But
the other thing I want to tell the young kids is that they'll say, well, if you can't, if you quit my office, you can't leave. And then they leave. Then you go to court. And then the first thing judge says, oh, okay, they left. But you don't have a penalty in there. I'm a judge. I can't make up a penalty. I can only enforce the contract. So, you learn with addition, 1 + 1 = 2, followed by the inversion of subtraction back to, and then timesing multiplication comes back with division. And I always ask these people, okay, you're getting married. That's great. And can I read the prenuptial? And oh well, no, we don't believe in that. Okay, well it's the same thing with going to war, going to marriage with a male dentist partner. Every lawyer tells me the same thing. These idiots became partners, and they don't have any word about the exit clause in the strategy. And it's like it's because so they missed simple addition. They didn't realize that after addition was followed by subtraction. I have this conversation
with a lot of young dentists. Pay the lawyer.
Yeah,
Pay the lawyer. Yeah. Stop it with the being cheap, because it's usually a cheap thing. It's a cheap thing. It's not I respect you so much and it's never going to go wrong. It's not that. It's they're being cheap. Stop it. It's the best investment you can make. I had good sales contracts. My sales contracts had a liquidated damage clause, which means that if a violation of the contract meant you pay X amount of dollars, made the judge's job real easy. Still took forever, still had to go through with it. I also had a very clean partnership agreement with my partner. It had a purchase price in there. You know what I mean? In other words, when and if we break up, this is how much it's going to be. And it makes it a lot easier. We were able to use the same attorney to break up as we did to get married in the first place. Lot cleaner. But it was also because we were both in a frame of mind where we wanted to be adults. We didn't want to fight. We didn't want to have it be ugly. We just said, this isn't working. I don't want to pay the lawyer another $100 and some $1,000s to fight about this. I would like it to just be over. So we signed the contracts and it was over. But I'm lucky in that way. That is not the majority of things I hear.
And you know who was the most unlucky? I've been lecturing 30 years, so I've seen so much weird shit. I was lecturing, I think it was in St. Louis. I was lecturing in St. Louis, and the lecture started like, I don't know, 8:30, whatever the hell. And I'm trying to lecture, but I noticed two police back there, and I'm still lecturing and everything. And then they walk up to the aisle, and they point to this guy, and then he comes up, and he's like, yeah. And so they walk him out and everything. Turns out at lunch, they were partners. After work, they got in an argument. He shot him dead right there in the office, but then just went home, had dinner, slept all night, woke up in the morning, met his staff at my office. And his partners in the was found later that night with his head blown out. I mean, just yeah, I don't know, but anyway,
it's the ultimate of poor coping skills. Good Lord.
Yeah, and it's so multivariate. It's going to probably turn out to be gut microbiome, genetics, food. I mean, there's so many things that could be doing this. When people say it runs in my family, well, since no one runs in your family, it could be exercise, it could be diet, it could be, I mean, nobody knows. And, but anyway, well, thanks for being my friend. I think that we should start a 2-person mutual admiration club. And we should just Skype each other and admire each other for an hour. And your website is Peaceful Practice. Now, who's listening to you right now that needs to pick up the phone and call or Skype? Who is your perfect customer where you're really I
have students, but meaning I don't have customers, I have students. But again, I struggled for stress here. It doesn't cost you anything to send me an email or call me. You know what I mean?
Well,
like, so if
what
there's
are the numbers?
If you can send me an email, again, if you go on the website, it's very easy. There's a contact form. It's peacefulpractice.com. Right. My email is dawngk@peacefulpractice.com. And again, it costs nothing for you and I to email or talk and see if this is if meditation practice I think would help you, or if I think I'm the teacher to teach it to you. So I encourage people to reach out. I get lots of inquiries. I've taught a lot of people. Again, via Skype, and I don't charge anything for that first call. Just call me. If you're in overwhelm, you're stressed out, you're not happy, you go, God, dentistry was a mistake. What does a conversation cost you? I can tell you with me, it costs nothing. And I have a little wisdom. I've spent a little time studying these things, and I managed to turn that around. And if I can help someone else do it, it's my privilege.
I remember when the guy that came out, who wrote Men Are From Mars or Women Are From Venus. Everybody tried to trash talk him because he'd been like divorced 5 times. I'm like, well, that's probably how he mastered it.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you can't be a sushi chef if you've never eaten sushi.
No.
And so maybe the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step of just emailing dawngk@peacefulpractice.com. And come on, dude, you learned how to do a root canal. And you can't,
Meditation is much easier.
Yeah, and that's why they don't get lawyers. I mean, the reason they don't get lawyers and the reason they don't seek help is because when you are in physics and I remember one time Joe Dovkin and I at Creighton University, we aced some physics test. He was an endodontist right here in Scottsdale, and he passed away a few years ago. And he said, "My God," he goes, "We're probably the smartest 2 guys in Swanson Hall." And I said, "Yeah. On these 40 questions."
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yes.
Nothing
else.
else.
So right. Yes.
Yeah. And
I see that a lot.
And I tell them now, I said, when every graduation ceremony I've ever gone to, my deal is I would say, look, you're a doctor of dental surgery. You don't know shit about anything else.
No, that's exactly.
You spent 8 years learning one freaking thing, stay in your lane. And if your big old ego says, well, if I know this, I know everything, then you lost.
I do think that is something I see. And again, I go back to that, I had a checklist, and when I got to the end, I thought I'd be done. And I was like, wait, I'm not done at all. There's like so much more to life. But I think that there are a lot of doctors, especially, who they get the degree and then they're done. They know it all. They've mastered the universe, and life isn't very kind to them a lot of the time. They're the guy from Venus and Mars. They have 6 wives and going. In other words, they're suffering. They're not finding their true voice. They think they have to get married over and over again. How about stop getting married? Why do you have to do that? It's because it was on the list. And you're like, well, if I don't feel happy, it's because that thing on the list, I still haven't mastered that one. It's like, well, maybe that thing isn't for you. Maybe there's another way to be happy. But we don't expand our mind, because our mind, we got the degree and that's where it stopped. I see that very commonly. It's heartbreaking, really, because they cause themselves pain and suffering over and over and over and over again in the same form.
Well, anything I can do to help you, it would be helping my homie. So if there's there's anything in my media company, an article, online, whatever, if you think you can reach more people, and because the one that bugs me the most, that's made me cry the most, is in my own backyard. We have 1 to 3 dentists every year blow their head off. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget. I got a call one time at 1:00, and he said, "Well, you do this, and he goes, I want to leave a message to my daughter who's little when she grows up. Do you think you can record it?" I said, "Absolutely," and I think that's so cool. But I don't want to do it on Skype. I'd rather sit down at your desk or sit down. And it was like 2:00 in the morning on a school night, and I drove over there, man, and it was like 2:00, and he was completely out of his mind. And but we got an ambulance, and now it's fine. So exactly, the brain goes on a skits, and it's fine the next morning. And but anyway, we could talk all night. Thank you so much for all that you do and continue to do for dentistry. You've made a big impact on me and so many others. Thank you for your 7,500 posts on Dental Town. That makes me, I probably know more about you than my 2 oldest sisters that are nuns. Really?
Probably, I know.
Older sister Catholic nuns don't confide in little brothers who are not priests. Sure. I mean, I know more about your personal life than my 2 oldest sisters.
For sure.
All right.
And right back to you, Howard.
All right. Namaste.
I appreciate you so much. Namaste.